What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolve video. Alright soldiers, we are finally here with my favorite craft, and we're going to be doing the combined sets for sets 14 and 15 for Runecaft. And of course, without breaking any sweat, let's go ahead and start off with our BP14 Banquet of Dreams. Alright, so looking at our first card, so we have Yukishima Master Biographer. So he's a 4-cost 3/5, and whenever you play a festive card that costs 3 or less, or a mage card that costs 3 or less, you select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 2 damage. When it comes into play Fanfare, the next festive card that costs 3 or less, or a mage card that costs 3 or less you play this turn costs 3 less to play. Now, knowing the translation, this is probably going to be different, so I don't know if it's exactly going to be the next mage cards that you play does cost 3 less, or the next festive card that costs 3 less. But it seems like it's going to check for at least 3 or less cards, so I know the mage deck is really going to see a big profit here because, come on, Daria is a 3 or less card, and then as soon as you play Daria, if you have those 5 mage followers in your cemetery, you're able to play another spell. So you're technically going to be able to do a lot of damage in one turn if you have a whole bunch of things active for you in the mage deck. And even though mage does get a huge buff here just with this legendary card here, I know festive might be pretty nice too, so I'm really excited to see what the rest of these festive cards are going to look like. Alright, but next up we have Riley Astral Shaman. So she's a 2-cost 2/2, you can evolve her for 2. You can activate only if you have spent at least 2 stack counters to perform Earthright effects this turn. When she comes into play, you can summon a Magic Sentiment token. Alright, so it looks like we have some Earthright support here. So I know Earthright kind of shifted out of the meta, of course, especially with Uma being the thing that it is. It's still playable, don't get me wrong, but hopefully with Riley Astral Shaman here, and of course, if we're going to be late in the game, we're going to be consuming stacks off of counters like very easily. So being able to evolve this follower off of using multiple stacks is going to be very nice. And on top of that, playing this in the early game will just go ahead and get us that Magic Sentiment token. But however, looking at Riley Evolve, so she does turn into a 3/3, but on Evolve you search your deck for a follower with Earthright that costs X or less, and then summon it and then shuffle your deck. X equals your max play points. Alright, so another way to start digging through your deck. So I know one of the other problems that Earthright really had was that if you didn't see Faust, you kind of, I wouldn't say you lost the matchup, but you wouldn't really be doing pretty well because Faust really is what gets the engine going the most, just because you're able to get those 2 amulets from your deck and then put them into your EX area and you're able to play them. So being able to get Faust a lot easier is going to be very nice. And on top of that, if you want to, or if you need to close games, then getting out the Ancient Alchemist isn't going to be bad from this effect either. Alrighty, next up we have Burgent Layered Sorceress, so she's a 2-cost 2/2. This card can't be played from your EX area, but you can evolve her for 1, and at the start of your end phase, if this card is in your EX area, look at the top card of your deck. If it's an Onion Patch, you may summon it, otherwise put it to the top or bottom of your deck. Alright, so I absolutely love some Onion support, so of course we can play this follower and then evolve it, and of course probably off of the evolve we go ahead and put this card into the EX area for whatever we do for Onion Patches and stuff like that. But this card just accumulating a lot of value in our EX area is going to be humongous, just constantly playing those Onion Patches for free at the end of every end phase. And of course, if a card's not very helpful for our deck or throughout the game plan, looking at the top card of our deck at the end of every turn is going to be pretty nice, especially if you don't have an Onion Patch, because you can send those trash cards to the bottom of your deck. Alright, so looking at Burgent Evolve though, so she does turn into a 3/3, so on Evolve you discard an Onion Patch to draw 2 cards, but she does have last words to put this card into your EX area. Alright, so absolutely humongous, so I absolutely love it when they print cards that really do help these decks. So the one problem that you do have in Onion is that you don't really have a big hand size, because if you open a lot of onions, you need to kind of play them out, and they need to go into the cemetery so you can get the storm effect off of your onions. So being able to discard an Onion Patch to draw 2 cards, which could potentially be Onion Patches or other cards and whatnot, but just being able to draw for the deck is very huge. Alrighty, next we have Arctic Chimera. So it's a 6-cost 5/5, and it has Rush and a Strike ability. So when it swings, you can select any fall on the field and deal it damage equal to this follower's attack. And then it also has last words with Earthright to summon this follower. And you can change this follower's attack and defense to a 2/2 to give this follower Storm. Alright, so I will say that this follower does have a lot of effects going on. So initially paying the regular cost of swinging in for 5 will be very nice. So you can technically take care of 2 targets in 1. And on top of that, if you do have the Earthright stack, of course, go ahead and summon this follower again. And then it still has its strike ability. It's just only going to be dealing 2 damage to an enemy follower. So if there's a follower with at least like 7 defense, you can definitely take care of it with this one card in 1 turn. Alrighty, next we have Story of a Lifetime. So it's a 3-cost spell, so you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal 2 cards from among them and add them to your hand, then you put the rest into your cemetery. If there's a Yukishima Master or Biographer on your field, you can recover 1 play point. Alright, so I think this card really does help out the mage deck, because I do believe the one problem that the mage deck does have is the followers hitting the cemetery. So being able to draw 2 cards essentially, and then throwing those 2 cards, probably those mage followers, you're probably not going to be using those turns or in the next couple of turns. So you can go ahead and hit that threshold of those 5 mage followers so your deck can really be active. Because, you know, having 5 spells in cemetery isn't going to be as hard as getting those 5 mage followers. And then on top of that, the Yukishima Master Biographer, of course, this is going to be a free card if that card's on field, so being able to just go ahead and replay 1 play point to go ahead and probably use that play point for either a spell on your opponent's turn or to just get extra value on your turn. Alright, but next up we have Orchestral Mage. So she's a 3-cost 3/3 and you can evolve for 1, but when she comes into play Fanfare, when you play another festive card this turn, you can give this follower Storm or Drain. Alright, so of course, you know, Runecaft is going to be playing multiple cards in one turn, so of course it's going to check for the festive card, unfortunately not mage followers. So next festive card that you do play, you're probably going to be looking for the Biographer play. So when you play this and then you play the spell card, you can go ahead and give this follower Storm or Drain, whatever, you know, the situation might give for it. And on top of that, you might be able to evolve this follower to get more effects off of that. Alright, but looking at the Mage Evolve, so she turns into a 4/4, but on Evolve you select any follower on the field and deal it damage equal to 2 times the number of festive or mage cards you've played this turn. And of course, Runecraft would have the complexity of however many cards that you've played in a turn, you do 2 times the number of damage. It feels like more of a Forestcraft thing when I see like abilities and, you know, text like this. But of course, you're probably only going to be playing maybe 1 or 2 mage cards in one turn, probably 3 max, if don't get me wrong, because you're going to be reducing the cost and making things free. So probably doing no more than like 3 cards in one turn to do a total of like 6 damage, which is pretty nice. But you're probably going to do an average of 4 damage there with this card. And then on top of that, with an Evolve side, you'll probably get to choose either to do 4 storm damage or 4 healing damage, which is pretty nice too. Alright, but next up we have Tempest Alchemist. So he's a 3-cost 3/3, and when he comes into play Fanfare, you select enemy fall on the field and deal it 3 damage. You can add 1 to a stack on your field. So I'd say this isn't a bad card, especially, you know, just spending 3 to deal 3 damage to something and then adding 1 stack. Just because you can probably use the Mirror of Truth play, this is like a pretty decent card to be using Mirror of Truth. Of course, this isn't going to replace Saradrin, don't get me wrong. But on top of that, being able to just go ahead and add that extra stack is going to help just in case if you're like falling behind on your stacks. Alrighty, next we have Dream Come True. So it's a 7-cost spell, so put the top card of your deck into your EX area, repeat until your EX area is full, and the next card you play from your EX area this turn that was put there by this card's effect costs 0 to play. Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you soldiers, the exact first card that I thought of when thinking of this spell was D-Shift. So imagine hitting D-Shift off of this ability, making D-Shift free, and you still have like technically a second hand to kind of play with for the very next turn when you go into D-Shift to really like end your opponent if you need to. Alright, next up we have Chakram Wizard. So he's a 3-cost 2/2, you can evolve him for 1, but when it comes into play Fanfare, you select enemy fall on the field. And if there's another mage follower on your field, you can deal it 3 damage. Alright, some subtle mage stuff here, so as long as you have another mage follower on the field, you can deal something 3 damage while also evolving this follower in the same turn. Alright, so looking at the Wizard Evolve though, so he turns into a 3/3, but on Evolve you select enemy follower on the field and then deal it 3 damage, and then you draw a card and then discard a card. Alright, you will definitely be missing out if you don't have a mage follower on the unevolved side, but on the evolved side it seems you could still kind of like play in tempo by dealing 3 damage to something, having a 3/3 on the field while also filtering your hand a little bit, and then probably putting one of those mage followers that are probably hard to fill up in your cemetery into the cemetery. Alrighty, next we have Owl Receptionist. So it's a 3-cost 1/1. When it comes into play Fanfare, the next festive card that costs 3 or less, or a mage card that costs 3 or less you play this turn costs 3 less to play. And if there's a Yukishima Master Biographer on your field, you can give your leader +2 defense. Alright, so we have another card that is really helping us move on with tempo. So of course, on turn 3, it seems like you're going to be hitting a lot of gas. So you definitely need to look for cards that are definitely going to either like draw you a card, or is going to allow you to do more things in one turn when playing that next 3-cost or less card. So if you also have Yukishima on the field, you will be getting these extra bonuses, so you do have to make sure you do play the Yukishima first. Then you're going to probably play this card, and then the next card that you're going to play is going to be like free as well, and then you're just going to be plussing off of a lot of these effects that way. Alright, but next we do have Earthen Fist, so it's a 3-cost quick spell, so you can select enemy fall on the field and then deal it 5 damage, and then you have Earthright, you can deal 2 damage to its leader. Alright, so Dirt, quick spell just dropped, and you're able to deal 5 damage in quick timing, and then on top of that, if you have a stack, of course, you'll be able to deal 2 damage to its leader, and honestly, why wouldn't you do that? Because if you put them into kill range, like, for instance, if you take them from 11 to 9 in the very late game, you go for Ancient Alchemist the very next turn, you can definitely just clean up with the rest of the play points you do have. Alrighty, next we have Magical Reserve, so it's a 6-cost spell, so you can draw 2 cards and then deal damage to each enemy following the field equal to the number of cards in your hand. I'm not gonna lie to you soldiers, when I see cards like this, like back then, like in the early stages of like Shadowverse Evolve, would have absolutely loved cards like this just because we get into the late game so easily. So being able to spend 6, draw 2 cards, and if I have 7 to 8 cards in my hand, being able to deal 8 damage to the field is just humongous. It's not very rare for Runecaft to not have that many cards in their hand unless they're playing like Onion or something that's like super aggro. So like having like the maximum hand size is something Rune usually does. So being able to draw 2 and deal damage equal to the number of cards in your hand is just huge for Runecaft. Alrighty, next up we have Grand Spire, so it's a 1-cost amulet, so it does have stack, but when it comes to play Fanfare, you select them, you fall on the field, and deal it 2 damage. Alright, so Earthright got Angelic Snipe in terms of an amulet that has stack, so that's absolutely amazing. So of course with Uma aggro running around, being able to snipe something for 2 is big on turn 1, and then turn 2 being able to go for Red Hot Ritual to keep the game prolonging, just being able to deal with your opponent's cards is very nice, so I'm very glad that Earthright has access to this now. Alrighty, and then we have our alt art for set 14 here, and it's the Yakushima, the biographer, and I'm not gonna lie, she looks pretty cool, pretty cute. If you soldiers have a problem with the gender bent, and I think it's called Rule 67, I can't remember what it's called, but it's just when a character is just gender bent and it's changed and looks like the opposite sex. So this is what it's going to be looking like for set 14, not gonna lie, she looks cool. But of course, you know, I'm not a high rarity searcher, so if any of you soldiers are out there that are high rarity searchers, I hope you're able to pick up this card if you do want it. But of course, moving on, we are going to transition into BP15 Trial of the Omens. Already looking at our first card, so we have Rayo Truthful Elimination. So he's a 9-cost 6/6, and when playing this card, you can bury 3 mage followers that cost 2 or more, and this card costs 9 less to play. But when it comes to play Fanfare, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you may put a card from among them into your EX area, and you put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. You can also activate to discard a Rayo Omen of Truth to select an enemy follow on the field and deal it 9 damage. Then you put an Ursat's Elimination token into your EX area. Alright, so this is going to be pretty big, so I'm not gonna lie, being able to just play this card for free essentially by making sure there are 3 mage followers that cost 2 more on the field, and of course, if you're gonna be playing a lot of mage cards in one turn, it's not going to be foreign to probably cheat this out and then still have some extra play points like after that. So being able to just do that and have this card played out for free for a 6/6, you discard the Rayo Omen of Truth and you can select enemy follow on the field and deal it 9 damage. Don't know many followers that are going to survive past that, so that's pretty cool. And then you get that token into your EX area. And on top of that, being able to look at the top 3 to put any card into your EX area is just absolutely huge. Alright, so let's look at this token card though. So we have Ursat's Elimination, so it's a 1-cost spell token, so you can select the Omen/Mage follower that costs 3 less in your cemetery and then summon it. Alright, so being able to replay any of the mage cards that you did get rid of to go ahead and play the Rayo is going to be very nice, just so you can loop their Fanfare or loop whatever activate ability that you can use. The first card I do think can come to mind is just Daria, because you're able to go ahead and look at the top 3, and you have those 3 mage followers in your cemetery, and of course, being able to just throw away Rayo, because Rayo Omen and Truth does kind of like sit in your hand, and it is kind of like weird to just play Rayo and like Rune in general. So having the Rayo and then just like discarding it and maybe, you know, hitting that threshold might be it for you, you know? So that's an easy way to get those mage followers into your cemetery, because it is kind of hard to get those mage followers into your cemetery. So being able to replay those mages and then have their fanfares looped or just having their activate abilities looped is going to be very nice for 1 play point. Alright, so soldiers, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm getting tongue twisted on this card, and I've done this like a couple times, so let's try our best. So we have Lashena Malicious Destruction. She's a 3-cost 3/3. We can evolve her for 1, but when she comes to play Fanfare, if there are at least 3 idolatry cards on your field, you put a Malicious Monody token into your EX area. All right, soldiers, we have our idolatry support here, and I know every time I see omens, we're gonna have some Lashena. And if you have been paying attention to my outro here, you know we love Lashena here. So having some more idolatry support is going to be very nice, and I did kind of peek into set 15 here. We're gonna have some lovely idolatry support, so I'm very excited to be testing this out once set 15 does drop. So having the Melodious token is going to be very nice to figure out, but the harder part is probably having the 3 idolatry cards onto your field. That's not going to be happening on turn 3, let's be honest. But you know, when you do get to that turn, when you do have those idolatry cards on your field, you're able to spawn out this token, and probably the evolve is going to help out with that as well. Alright, so looking at the Melodious Monody token, so it's a 0 cost spell token, so when playing this card, you may engage any number of idolatry cards on your field as an additional cost. You can select any fall on the field and deal it damage equal to twice the number of idolatry cards engaged as an additional cost. Alright, so of course, if we're going to have the black and white tokens, they're not going to really be doing anything except out on our main phase. So of course, we're going to be pinging the enemy leader for 2, also healing us for 2, and now our amulets have some purpose here with this token. So being able to engage those amulets to being able to deal at least 4 damage to a follower is cool. And of course, if you have any extra amulets, you can just keep going up with the number. So I do believe this is going to be a very nice feature for the amulets, just having more purpose outside of the fact that we're just kind of healing 2 and dealing 2 constantly and just pinging the enemy away and healing outside of their range. Just being able to take care of a follower this way is very nice. Alright, so looking at Lashena Evolve though, so she does turn into a 4/4, but on Evolve you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may put up to 2 idolatry cards from among them into your EX area and put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so just looking from this on evolve ability, I can already tell that we're probably going to get a lot of idolatry cards this set, which really does excite me, of course. So being able to look at the top 4, any 2 idolatry cards, you can go ahead and add them to your EX area, and that's kind of like a secondary hand that we're going to kind of play with. Just make sure you do kind of pay attention to whenever you are adding those idolatry cards and making sure you're not filling up your EX area, because mind you, the 4-cost Lashena does throw those black and whites into the EX area. So being able to get any 2 idolatry cards is going to be very nice, because we do have the 0-cost spell, which when we do go for the Lashena turn will be able to help us out, so we're able to play those black and whites the very same turn. Alright, but next up we have Kuon Wooing Master. So he's a 5-cost 4/4, and when playing this card you can reveal 2 Onmyoji cards in your hand, and this card costs 1 less to play. You can also advance this card for 4 to summon a Noble Shikigami from your Evolve deck. You can activate only if there are at least 7 spells and Onmyoji cards in your cemetery. When it comes on play, fanfare, you draw a card, then discard a card. You can also activate to engage this card to select an Onmyoji follower that costs 4 less in your cemetery and then summon it. Alright, so just by looking at this activate ability, I can already tell that we now have multiple ways to play Cursecrafter. So we can include 3 cards of this card, so as long as we play Cursecrafter before we get into the turn that we do play this, then that's going to be pretty nice to be dealing 4 damage and then kind of looping Cursecrafter. Now we have more use of evolving Cursecrafter if we need to, but of course we'll probably want to use those extra 4 play points to advance this follower to go ahead and use the Noble Shikigami Evolve, which I know in the Worlds Beyond, the Noble Shikigami was kind of like the game ender, so hopefully this is going to kind of translate into the Evolve game. Alright, but looking at the Noble Shikigami, so it is a 10-cost 5/5, and this follower has ward, and this follower doesn't take ability damage. When it comes into play fanfare, you deal 5 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on the field. Alright, so I'm kind of seeing how the playing line works. So if you have those 15 spells / Onmyoji cards into your cemetery, you kind of play the big Kuon, and then you can play the Noble Shikigami right afterwards. You know, when you do go for the other Kuon play, to deal 5 to face and then 5 to board, and then do another 5 to face. So this is definitely going to look like Kuon is going to be doing more damage on turn, and Kuon is going to be back. Or I guess Kuon really didn't go anywhere, but Kuon is definitely stepping back into the light as kind of like the first place Runecraft deck. So I'm really excited to see what this deck is going to be doing with all these combinations that's going to be happening with these cards printing out. Alright, but next we have Acid Golem. So it's a 2-cost 2/2, you can evolve it for 1, but when it comes to play fanfare, Earthright, you can select enemy leader or an enemy follower in the field and deal it 2 damage. Alright, so I do believe that this card is definitely going to have its merits. So if they keep printing Golem cards, then the Golem deck / if you're just going to be focusing on Golem things, then this deck just gets better. So Ancient Alchemist is already going to ping 3 for you playing a Golem. And then when you do the fanfare, if you already have like a stack / Earthright on field, you can go ahead and trigger that and deal an extra 2 to an enemy follower or, enemy leader to do a total of 5 to whatever you want. Alright, so looking at the Acid Golem Evolve though, so he does turn into a 3/3, but on Evolve you select enemy follower on the field and deal it 2 damage. Alright, so this is kind of just like a tempo evolve. So if you spend 2 with the extra 1, you can deal 2 damage to a follower and then, you know, swing into the rest of it, or, you know, just take care of 2 and 1 if you're going to be running like that. Alrighty, next up we have Melody's Return. So it's a 2-cost spell card. So when playing this card, you can banish a card with Lashena in its name from your cemetery as an additional cost. This card can't be played without paying the additional cost, and if there are at least 2 idolatry cards in your field, you can search your deck for a follower with Lashena in its name and then summon it and then shuffle your deck. Alright, so whoa, this is absolutely huge. So if we see this spell card and then we already have a Lashena into our cemetery, and then we go ahead and play 2 other idolatry cards, or if we already have established an idolatry card that was able to survive, this is going to be absolutely huge. So being able to spawn out any Lashena, like the 4-cost of course, that will really start our game plan. Just go ahead and summon it, put those cards into our EX area, and if we do have the spell cards to make it free, we're still running with some extra play points, especially if we're going to be doing this on turn 4, to go ahead and get some more extra plays in. Alrighty, next up we have Secrets of Onmyoto. So it's a 0-cost spell. So when playing this card, you can reveal 2 Onmyoji cards in your hand as an additional cost. This card can't be played without paying the additional cost, but you can spend X play points to search your deck for an Onmyoji follower that costs X or less, summon it, and then shuffle your deck. And if there are at least 7 spells and Onmyoji cards in your cemetery, you put a Paper Shikigami token into your EX area and give it this card costs 1 less to play. Alright, so I'm not gonna lie to you soldiers, we are running on a lot of gas with Runecaft here. So not only are we going to be building more Triable for Onmyoji, we're gonna be revealing those 2 cards, and then we can get any card that's Onmyoji that's X or less for however many play points. We can go ahead and go through our deck and then play that card instead of, like, you know, praying that we're gonna hit top X or praying that we draw this card next. It's now we can just spend 0, or technically we can play this card for 0, then spend those play points to go ahead and search whatever follower that we need and summon it. Its fanfare effects are going to go off. And if we have those 7 spells and Onmyoji cards in our cemetery, we can go ahead and put a Paper Shikigami in our EX area, which is initially just going to cost 1. Alrighty, next we have Adherent of Elimination. So he's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve him for 1. When it comes to play Fanfare, if this follower is put onto the field from anywhere other than your hand, you can evolve it. Alright, so it's going to be one of those mage followers that we are going to see from the EX area, or we're probably going to be playing this from the EX area, so this is going to be one of those valid targets that we can play that gets us past that, oh, you can only evolve once per turn once you trigger this ability. So being able to play this from the top of our deck, or from, you know, top 5, whatever, throwing it into the EX area and then playing it, and then this fanfare is going to go off where we're able to evolve this follower and probably swing in for some damage on a follower. But looking at the elimination evolve, so he does turn into a 3/3, but on evolve you can choose one of the following. You can either 1, select any follower in the field and deal it 2 damage, or 2, search your deck for a follower with Rayo in its name, reveal it and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Alright, so it looks like this is going to be the card that's going to search out our 9-cost Rayo or a 7-cost Rayo for really going into tempo here. So being able to search out Rayo at any time is just an amazing ability, I'd say, even just doing it for 3 play points. So playing this from the EX area is going to let us evolve for free, and we can still get past the multiple evolves in 1 turn. Searching out our Rayo is probably what we're going to be most likely doing, but in the early turns we're probably going to deal the 2 damage to a follower to just match our opponent's freak if they're playing low to the ground. But searching out the Rayo is just going to be very huge here, because we definitely are going to get to the late game when we are playing these Runecaft mage decks. Alrighty, next up we have Adherent of Melody. So she's a 2-cost 2/3. When she comes to play Fanfare, you look at the top 3 cards of her deck. You may reveal an idolatry card from among them and add it to your hand. You need to put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so 1, I want to go ahead and say that I am just absolutely loving all the Tribal. Like, I'm just a big smile on my face for sets 14 and 15 for me here. And you know I'm already a sucker for Runecrafting. I'm already a sucker for idolatry / omens. So like, I'm really loving this set. So being able to, on turn 2, if your opponent isn't playing very aggressive, or, you know, if you didn't really open any like good removal on those opening turns, just being able to play followers on turns 1 or turns 2, it's just going to be very big for you, because your opponent does need to answer cards like this. So being able to look at the top 3, replace the card that you essentially just played, and then you're going to be looking for those idolatry cards that's going to be helping with whatever you're going to be doing for your game plan that game. Alrighty, next up we have Elimination Unleashed. So it's a 6-cost spell, so you can select up to 3 omen / mage followers with a total cost of 9 or less in your cemetery, and then summon them and give them at the start of your end phase, destroy this follower. Alright, so if you were struggling to really get your Rayo out, spending 6 is going to get your 9-cost Rayo. So spending 6 is going to get you those 3 mage followers from your cemetery and then summoning them. I think this is just absolutely huge, because those fanfares and those effects are going to be going off. And then you go for your 9-cost Rayo, and then when you do your 9-cost Rayo, you're going to be doing all the things that your 9-cost Rayo does. And of course, you know, with the token being in the EX area, you can go ahead and play whatever mage follower that you deemed like pretty fit again for 1 play point if you do have the extra play point. So I think this is the spell card that's really going to get your Rayo out if you haven't already established all your other mage followers. Alrighty, next up we have Scroll Wizard, which is a 5-cost 3/3, and you can evolve him for 1. And then looking at the Scroll Wizard evolve, so he does turn into a 4/4, but on evolve you discard a spell and you can deal 4 damage to each enemy follower on the field. Alright, personally, I don't know, because like I'm kind of like hand in hand with this card, because Alchemical Lore, this is literally Alchemical Lore, except on the fact that you do have to discard a spell card. But when you do discard a spell card, you do get a 4/4 follower out of it. So like, you know, it's kind of hand in hand in what you really want. So like, I think Alchemical Lore is just a bit better just because we're able to just search it through like Merlin and stuff like that. And it's cheaper by 1 play point, but you know, it is a bronze card. So like, it really is kind of like what you want to get the most out of it. Like Alchemical Lore is searchable. This isn't, but you do get a follower out of it and a 4/4 stat line while also dealing 4 to the enemy board. So like, you know, it really is hand in hand on what you want to choose for this follower. Alrighty, next we have Hermit of Truth, which is a 3-cost 2/3, and when she comes into play, you can select an Omen/Mage follower with a different name other than this card in your cemetery and put it into your EX area. If this follower was put onto the field from anywhere other than your hand, the selected follower costs 3 less to play this turn. Alright, so goodness, it looks like Edict of Truth is really going to be on gas this next set. So if you manage to play this card from your EX area out of the cards that you're going to be choosing off the top 5, you can choose any mage follower that's at least 3 or less, or any mage follower that is different than Hermit of Truth just because you're not looping a whole bunch of spells. Being able to just do this and then play another card from your EX area for free is going to really ramp up the mage followers that you do get in 1 turn. Alrighty, next we have Hermit of Destruction, which is a 1-cost 2/2. When it comes into play, you can select enemy follower on the field, and if there are at least 3 Idolatry cards in your field, you can deal it 3 damage. Alright, so Goblin for Idolatry has dropped, so finally we have more than just 1 play on turn 1 than to just have Destructive Reframe as our turn 1 play. Now we have Hermit of Destruction, which allows us to threaten some more damage in the early game, which is very nice. And if we already have solidified, you know, the black and white tokens, stuff like that, we do go for this, we can deal 3 damage to a follower. Alrighty, next up we have Crystal Witch, which is a 3-cost 1/2, and this card costs 2 less to play if you have at least 2 mage followers on your field, but when she comes into play, you can draw a card and then discard a card. Alright soldiers, so I think this is the icing on the cake. So if you manage to keep those 2 mage followers alive, you can play this for 1 and then go for your Rayo turn if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure if I'm correct, you know, you have those 2 mage followers on field, you play this for 1, you can then go for Rayo, you know, of course, you know, after you draw a card and then discard a card, but this will really help get those 5 mage followers in your cemetery when you do go for those bigger plays. Alright, and lastly we have Twin Blade Mage, which is an 8-cost 2/2, and this card costs 6 less to play if there are at least 6 cards with different costs in your cemetery. It's follow as Storm, but when it comes to play Fanfare, you select 2 enemy followers on the field and deal them 3 damage. Alright, so it looks like Vincent got some support here. So of course Vincent is like the only rune deck where it's checking for different cost cards in your cemetery. So for 2 play points you can get a 2/2 Storm that also allows you to select up to 2 enemy followers on the field and deal them 3 damage, which isn't bad. And of course, you know, this can also count as your 8 cost in your cemetery when you do go for your Vincent plays. Alrighty, and here we have our alt art for set 15, the Secrets of Amayodo, which is going to be the spell card that's going to get your Omeoji card from your deck and then play it. So absolutely loving the art here with Rayo, and then Kuon here with the Celestial Shikigami. I do believe that's the Celestial Shikigami in the background. So this is absolutely beautiful art. So if you are going to be rocking this for set 15, you know, wear it with pride because this is going to be a very beautiful card to be rocking. And alrighty soldiers, that is all the cards for sets 14 and 15 for Runecraft. So you already know I had a blast doing this. I always have a blast doing Runecraft because I really know most of the play lines for Runecraft. It's going to be very rare where I don't really know what a Runecraft deck does. So, you know, Runecraft is my favorite class. You know, I like playing blue. Control has always been something I've enjoyed. Idolatry's back. We have Rayo cards that actually make use of the 7 cost, and I know Edict of Truth kind of like made the 7 cost playable in a way. I'm doing that with air quotes, of course, but like I'm very excited that all these decks are just like revisiting the omens, and the omen cards are really like usable and playable. Idolatry's back. I know I already said that, but I'm just very excited to play that, even though it probably won't be like super meta, but you know, someone might be able to crack it, you know. So being able to play all those cards is going to be very exciting for sets 14 and 15. But alright soldiers, that is all that I had for you today. And of course, if you have noticed that I did drop 2 videos yesterday, that is just how it's going to be functioning for the webcam locals, which I do implore everyone to like pop out on Sunday. you know, we're growing. I like the growth that we do have there. So if you're able to, you know, pop out on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I really invite everyone to come play, because I know you might be in that same situation from the video that I dropped before, that you don't have a locals. So, you know, if you don't have a locals, you know, what's wrong with staying at home and playing cards that you already paid for? But alright, soldiers, make sure you are safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.